Today we are going to discuss on the different methods of data collection, the way you can collect the data. And both the methods are different in qualitative as well as quantitative research. We have already discussed it in the class in detail that how these are different. However, there is something that we need to discuss as primary data and secondary data. Now, when it comes to primary data, we have the data which is first-hand information from the subjects or the participants of the study, which like you get for the analysis or you take for the analysis. However, secondary sources are or secondary data is the data which is collected through the documents or even the research paper itself is the secondary source. Because when you give reference of the of some research, they have already conducted that research on that specific topic, and when you say that the participants in that research reported, so it's not the first hand knowledge, and you have already reported already taking the data which is used by the people. So these research papers and these books are the secondary data that you cite in your research. When it comes to primary data can be obtained through observation, through interviewing, and through questionnaires. Interviewing, during interviewing you can have observation as well, so you can do these both at the same time, or you can exclude interviewing and you only go for the observation of the participants. So when it comes to participants where you feel that observation can be done but interviewing is impossible, that for example you want to observe you want to see how children acquire language, so obviously you cannot ask question from a 3-month old, that or you cannot interview a 3-month old that what are the words that you have learned, or can you listen to the voice that is your mother is talking to you, or is it or how you're pronouncing this cooing and babbling kind of sounds. So it is important that you know where you can go for the observation and where interviewing is necessary. So it all depends on your study. What is your study and what are you trying to analyze, and it depends on your study whether you're going for the questionnaires, which whether you'll be going for the questionnaires or whether you'll be going for interviewing or for the observation method. Okay. Um, in While collecting primary source data which is using the primary source, it it depends on the purpose of your study. What is the purpose of your study? So you have to keep the objectives of your study in your mind, and then you have to collect data. So for example, um, uh, you are trying to compare the uh, language of here Pakistani people and the language which is used in Canada. So there is this socioeconomic factor involved in that. Like, how are you going to analyze this taking primary source data? How are you going to analyze people over here in Pakistan, and then you'll go and analyze the language of people over there in Canada, and you take live interviews from them? So because it is an over there in foreign countries, they get paid if they are the part of any research. So you cannot go ahead and pay them because it's expensive. Here in Pakistan, you can go ahead and ask anyone to become the part of your study, and if they are willing, then they'll give their consent, and you can take collect the data. But for that reason, it's like this socioeconomic factor is there. You need to you need to have participants contacts over there. And if it's difficult for you, then rather than going for the interview method, you can go for something else, right? You can go and take videos which are already available on TV channels of Canadians speaking with one another. So this is something which would help you uh, in getting out of this socioeconomic problem, whether you can afford it or not, or whether it's difficult or not. But you, at the same time, you have to keep this demographic characteristics of your participants in your mind. That is, which age group do you require? That is there any age level, or is there any education level that you are trying to analyze? That is, for example, if someone wants to analyze the language of educated class in comparison with the uneducated class, then it is important that you need to know the demographic detail of people. So then it is necessary that the method of collection of the data should be according to what is your requirement in that case. So you have to keep all these points in your mind while you are when you are trying to collect data using a primary source. And the most important thing is the purpose of your study, and whether the respondents or the participants are truly the part of your study, and whether the method that you are using would truly extract answers for your research or not. This is very important. So for example, if you want to see the facial expressions of someone, and you're conducting an interview on telephone, on telephone, it is impossible, means, or on a phone call, it is impossible to have to know about the facial expressions of the people. So a purpose of your study is always linked with the method that you are trying to analyze. Sometimes sorry with trying to, a method which you're using. This Sometimes it happens that like more than one method is also okay to be used. So you have a choice that you can use both methods or more than one method. So this could also be possible. Okay. um, the first method is observation. In observation method, we collect the primary data, and observation, as you all know, is to observe. And this observation that you are doing is purposeful. That is, there is always a purpose behind that. There is one specific selective way of watching someone. That is, you already have something in your mind for which you are observing someone. So for example, if you're observing the behavior of a person while communicating in English, or while communicating in Urdu, or while communicating in Pashto. So you are actually observing the person based on the language that they are using. So there's always a one specific purpose, and it's systematic, and it's a selective way of watching and listening to an interaction or a phenomena as it takes place. So there are different types of observation. And in these observation, we have participant observation and non-participant observation. So in participant observation is when uh, as a researcher, you are participating in the activities of the group, being observed in the same manner as its members, with or without their knowing that they are being observed. So for example, if you're observing For example, if we'll take the same example. So for example, if you are observing the two people communicating with one another, or a group of people communicating in English, a group of people communicating in Pashto, a group of people communicating, so you are actively the part of that group. That is, and then you are observing it. This is participant observation. Means, as a researcher, you are the part of the group. But non-participant observation is opposite to that, and it's when you are not involved in the activity of the group. So you are sitting on the side and you're observing the group which is communicating with one another. So this is how it is non-participant observation. Okay. Now, okay, there are some problems with the observation method. The problem is that maybe when you're observing someone, obviously when you tell someone that, I'm going to observe you, or when you're going to be the part of my study, so then they are going to control their emotions. They are not going to be acting as natural as they would when you're not observing them. So this is one of the reasons in which you can say that you don't get the true result of what actually is happening. This is something which would change their reaction if they know that they are being observed. And this change in their behavior is called a Hawthorne effect, which is effect that is, the behavior of the person has changed because you're observing them. So you might have observed that when you like, a child would be playing, or maybe children are playing together, and the moment they know that you people are not observing them, they are okay. But for a while, when you start looking at them, instantly they feel embarrassed and they feel shy and they get silent and they stop playing. So this is, it is very natural that when someone or when a human being knows that they are being observed, their behavior changes. Secondly, it is not uh, always possible that an observer would uh, always record the true or the real observation. It may be colored by their own perception. So the observers means the researcher may be biased regarding what the person is analyzing. So, for example, if you have already made up your mind regarding a research that when someone is speaking in English, they feel proud, or their facial expressions are like that. So it may happen that the observer may be biased due to already formed behavior, or already in the belief that they have regarding something, or it can be the perception about the person, means the participant themselves. So for example, we say that a child is not intelligent. So we already have made up our mind, and according to that we start observing. So it can be uh, regarding the person or the subject or the participant of the study, or it can be regarding anything else due to which they are biased. Moreover, the observation of one person may vary from the observation of another person. Another problem with the observation is that um, it can be incomplete. For example, you might miss out observing something while you are maybe writing, or when you or recording. Maybe the observation that you have done is incomplete and it's not a complete one. So probably maybe if you record it, so it can be a good way of observing it later, and filling out the missed parts in that. But still, it is not as accurate when you are naturally observing someone and you're not recording it for the later. So it's very obvious that you as a human being and as a researcher might miss out on something. Okay. Then there are in certain situations in which we can observe the person or the participant. One is the natural way, and the other is the controlled. The natural way is when you are, for example, someone is playing in the ground and you leave them in the ground and they are, in their natural state, and they are playing there, and you don't change anything according to your research. That is the natural way. And then there is one controlled, and then controlled is when you are actually changing the scenario and changing the situation. So for example, uh, if you want to observe that what is the impact of a teacher speaking in English to the students. So there could be two ways of doing that. One is natural and the other is controlled. The natural is when you don't tell the teacher, or when you or when you don't ask the teacher to change their natural way of teaching. So even if the teacher is using different phrases from Pashto, or switching from Urdu to Pashto and using English, it's a natural way of the class. But then there is this controlled one where the teacher is asked, and this one factor of speaking in English is controlled. So you can have a controlled observation, or you can have a natural observation as well. So for example, you're naturally observing someone, that is that can also be possible. Okay, the interviews. Okay. Interviewing. Interviewing is a method of collecting information from the people. It can be face to face. It can be from through a telephone. It can be a WhatsApp call, or through a WhatsApp call, or it can be through the Zoom with a video call. So it can be done in different methods, but it is collecting information, and it is an interaction between two or more than two individuals on a specific topic, or a specific purpose in mind, and that is called interview. So when a researcher is interviewing a person, they have this freedom that they can choose from they can choose the questions. They have this choice, they have this freedom that they can ask probing questions. That is, if they are not sure what the person has answered, so they can ask another question from them. And they can make themselves clear by asking multiple questions regarding their own views. This is how it's more flexible in this way. However, when we look at observation is um, not that flexible, because you cannot uh, exactly change it. You cannot ask questions. So it's this is something that you cannot do in observation. But within interview, you can also add observation. For example, when you are taking face to face interviews, you can look at the way people are doing things. So you can also observe their facial expressions, their body language. This also comes in observation. So at the same time, you can go for interviewing, and within interview you can go for the observation method as well. So it's like more, you can go for more complex. In interviewing, we have two types of interviews: unstructured interviews and structured interviews. We also have semi-structured interviews as well. In unstructured interviews are more flexible interviews. They don't have any set of questions where you are, you are following the, your one one it's like, for example, 10 or 20 questions that you have written with yourself, and you're going to ask these questions. It's nothing like that. You just have one topic in your mind, and you go ahead with asking questions, and the way natural conversation is done, it is like that. However, when it comes to structured interviews are very rigid interviews in structures. In structured interviews, as the word suggests, there are set of questions, and those set of questions are asked in the interview, and you are not supposed to go here or there from the interview questions. You are just supposed to ask those questions which are written over there as a set of questions to be asked from the interviewer. And that is why it is more structured interviews. However, there is this one level where we can say that it's semi-structured interviews, where it's neither one topic in your mind and very, like, you cannot ask like, it's like conversation, but at the same time, it is, there are set of questions, but you can ask a probing question, or you can ask an extra question with that, if you think that that question is required, or if you think that the person has not answered the question, or if you think that the person has misunderstood the question. You can clarify the question, you can rephrase the question, you can, ask a question where you think that within the answer you require something, and it is already a part of your it's a part of your question. So you it's semi structured, that is called semi structured interview. Okay. And this brings us to the method, which is questionnaire. And we all know that questionnaires is a set of list of questions in which and the respondents or the participants actually record their answers. It can be sent through email, or it can be, in the hard copy. So it can be handwritten, or it can be done through MS Word or online as well. So when it comes to questionnaires, there are different methods that we can follow. Email, or um, through hard copy. So it can be done in these ways, or for example, if you think that um, uh, these are called self-administered questionnaires in which you think that the person cannot fill the question for them, a questionnaire for themselves, because they are not because they cannot read the questions. You can also read it to them. We'll discuss it later. So in case of questionnaires, as there is no one to explain the meaning of the questions to the respondent, so you have to be sure that all the questions that you have written in the questionnaire are um, are very clear, and the font is okay, that the people, the person, the respondent who is reading it must not have any difficulty. It's self-explanatory, means it's you don't feel like you need to ask a question. So you have to be careful, because you won't be there to explain each and every point to them. So it's important that your questionnaire is complete in all aspects. Otherwise, the answers that you're going to get are going to be incomplete answers, or maybe incorrect, because maybe the person might have misunderstood the point which is written over there. So you can also add statements in the questionnaire, as well as you can add questions. So there are different ways of making a questionnaire. Okay. As I've already discussed, that you can also mail the questionnaire. That is, if you think that you are conducting research and you think that it's in Canada or somewhere far away, even in Lahore, and you think that you cannot go over there, so you can just simply mail the questionnaire, and that would be they can respond back to that questionnaire. And then we have this collective administration. In this kind of method, we can say that we obtain the answers from the whole class at the same time, um, or the participants are already in the group. So if they are collective, means they are not, you're not sending them as one person, like as one individual, but you're collecting it as a whole. And then you can also take questionnaires in a public place, such as a shopping center or health center or hospital or school, or any place. Of course, it depends on the kind of study that you're conducting. And why? Because if you think that you're conducting it in school or in the university, so according to that, you'll conduct your study, and you'll collect your data, which would be through, if it is through questionnaire, so then that's how you're going to do it. There's one other way now, which is also very famous, and that is Google survey. So this is one another method through which you can also collect data, and you can add questions over there as well. Okay. Okay. When we talk about questionnaires, so questionnaires are comparatively less expensive, in the sense that you can just email it to them and you will get a response. So even if someone is in Lahore or in Canada, you can get answers very easily. However, if it's interview or observation method, obviously you have to go there, and you have to interview them, or you can take a call, obviously. But if you're taking face to face interviews, then obviously you need to have um, uh, a lot of resources to meet that person. And that is why it's uh, questionnaires are less expensive. uh, Moreover, there's no face-to-face interaction between the respondents, so there's this more possibility that uh, they won't ask, or they won't be shy to answer some questions because you're not present there. Just like when sometimes teacher ask you to write a review about something, and that there's no one there, and you write it as an anonymous person. So this anonymity is also one of the reasons, which is an advantage for the questionnaires. We have disadvantages of the questionnaires, and that is that its application is limited. That is um, you cannot like it cannot be like it cannot be taken from the people who are illiterate, where or very young, or maybe children. So it's difficult. However, we can say that we have self-administered questionnaires, and self-administered questionnaires is a method which would nullify this limited application of questionnaire. That is, you read the question to them, and they give you an answer, and you fill it over there. But it is more like, researchers say that it is more like an interview method rather than which you can say that it is unstructured interviews. And it is not self-administered questionnaires. So but there is this these two views regarding this point. But we can say that questionnaires can be filled by the researchers themselves. um, the response rate is low. That is, it's maybe you'll send a lot of research, a lot of questionnaires to a lot of people, and not all of them would reply. Moreover, um, it's like, they can they have the choice. If they want to give the answer, they can. If they don't want to, then they would refuse that. They don't want to be the part of the study. And there are sometimes, even I have filled questionnaires, and there are sometimes some questions where you think that you, like, your answer, when you're giving the answer, it's incomplete and incorrect, and you want to add something to that, which is not possible in questionnaire. However, it is possible in interviews. And uh, moreover, there is this another problem that, because you're not there to elaborate the question, so they might misunderstand the question and give you a wrong answer to that. So this may be possible in questionnaires as well. Okay. Okay. The advantages of interview is that they are more appropriate for the complex situation. That is, when you think that there are certain questions that you think needs a lot of elaboration, you can go for that, and it gives you in-depth information about whatever you are probing. So if you think that the question is not answered completely, you can go in depth, you can go again in depth. So it's like one topic, and you ask question from so many perspectives that you get your answer very easily. And and the answers are complete as well. uh, Moreover, this information can be supplemented. That is, whatever the information is obtained from the responses, the responses that you have obtained, can also be added with that of non-verbal reactions, which I've already explained to you. That is, like, you can not only just, like, you would even uh, understand that the person was hesitant to answer. Even you'll be able to understand this when it comes to interview. So this is something which is the advantage of the interview. And you can also explain the questions when you ask a question and the person is unable to understand. And you can apply interviewing to everyone. Like, we even get hold of a 2-year old and ask them different questions that regarding their home or regarding how they are, and they would answer. So it's like you can apply this interviewing to everyone, literate, illiterate, um, any type of people. A disadvantage of interviewing is a lot of time. It takes a time, and it is expensive. I've told you that why it's expensive, because if you have to visit for the face-to-face interview, then it is expensive. And it's time consuming because it takes a lot of time, not only to record the interviews, not only to take time from the person, but also when it comes to when it comes to analyzing the data of interview. It takes a lot of time, because you have to type all of that, and it takes time. The quality of the data depends on the quality of the interaction. So if you have a good interaction with the person, then you will have good quality of the data. If not, then the quality might not be good. Then the quality of the data may also depend on the interviewer as well. That is, the way interviewer has conducted the interview, means their experience, their skill, and their commitment of the interview. So and the commitment of the interviewer. All of this depends on their commitment and their experience and their skills. Not everyone can take interview easily. So then one aspect can be the researcher can be biased. You might have seen that in political shows, when they are asking question, they already have one point in their mind, and they are constantly asking this question that, you know no, what about that, don't you think it's like that? So when you say don't you think it's like that, you are actually trying to uh, trying to let the other person you know know that this is your perspective, and it's very obvious that you're the researcher. The other person might change their view and say, "Mm, yes, maybe," and then it would color your findings. It would not be as true in the sense. So maybe the researcher is biased, and which would affect this all. Now, when you are conducting when you are conducting a research of any kind, you're going for observation, you're going for questionnaire, you're going for anything, you have to take permission from the person. You have to if you are going for the university in formal places and not public places, so you have to take permission from the university's formal permission. You have to write a letter, and you have to let them know that you have to conduct a study, and then they'll allow you both for questionnaire and interview, and as well as for the observation. And you have to also take permission from the participants. If they are willing to participate, then fine. You have to tell them about the research, that is, why are you conducting this research. You have to make sure that their names are not going to be mentioned in the research, and it would and they are going to be anonymous, right? So you have to mention this all comes in the ethics. You have to make sure that even when you are analyzing the data, you should not change what they have said. This comes in ethics of the research, and if someone gets to know that you have changed it, they can sue you. Okay, there are different types of questions that you can add in the questionnaires. You can add open-ended questions, as well as you can add close-ended questions. Open-ended questions are the questions in which you can ask, with why or how questions, and close-ended questions can be just yes and no answer. So, and you can also add statements in the questionnaire as well. But then we have this you might have studied it um, in the okay, I hope you might have studied it in your in psychology. In Likert scale, it's like you have this scale of strongly agree and disagree. So you can go for Likert scale in questionnaires, and for that you go from strongly agree, then agree, then neutral, then disagree, and then strongly disagree. So this is the Likert scale. You can also go from 1 to 2 in points, that is 1 2 3 4 5, or maybe 1 to 10. That is, you can ask a question that rate your understanding of English from 1 to 10. So where 1 is the lowest and 10 is the highest, right? So you can also add it in this way in the questionnaires as well. Okay. Okay, in very simple ways, open-ended questions are because they give you insight. Like, for example, if someone says that I don't like to speak in English, or I like to speak in Pashto, so this open-ended question would answer, like this open-ended question would help you in identify why. So you ask a question, why do you like, in the in the questionnaire you can ask open-ended question. But the problem with open-ended question is that you have to uh, do the, when it comes to analysis, you have to go ahead for the content analysis. Whereas the rest of the questions, questions, that is closed-ended questions, or even if it's through Likert scale or any other, it can be done through SPSS software, right? Which is a software, and which helps in finding the, in analyzing the data. And this SPSS software is a software in which you just add all the data that you have collected, and you can, just with one click, you can have a pie chart, a table. So all these tables, pie chart, bar chart, these all can be created with just one click if you add all the data on the SPSS software. SPSS stands for Statistical Package for the Social Sciences, and statistical package for the social sciences. This SPSS software is used a lot when it comes to questionnaires. So when it comes to open-ended questionnaires, there the person has given answer themselves, so you have to go ahead for the content analysis. This is something, and because of which there can be, because content analysis is done by by the researchers, by the researcher themselves. So then it is very subjective, it is not objective, right? This is something which is a problem when it comes to the open-ended questions. When it comes to close-ended questions, though they are very there is objectivity in that. Means if someone has said yes, so it's obviously yes. It's just like, in when you are giving the objectives to a student. So if a student has given the right answers to the objectives, the teacher is going to give 10 out of 10 to the student no matter what. But when it comes to a answer to the question, there is a possibility that your and teacher's views are different, or maybe there are some mistakes that you have done. So it this is something that happens in, in something where you have open answer, and somewhere where it is more objective. So uh, in with close-ended question, the answers, that is more objective. The researchers views would not clash with there's no biasness. But when it comes to close-ended questions, it is, you don't get you don't get insight uh, through the closed-ended questions. There are, no insights, like why it's happening, or why there is disagreement or agreement. So this is something which is there in close-ended questions. Okay, when you are forming or formulating questions in research, you have to be sure that you always use very simple language and everyday language that everyone can understand. You should not use any ambiguous. You should not add any ambiguous questions. Ambiguous questions are where you think that more than one answer can be correct. For example, if for example, if you might have seen this happening in your objectives question, that you know when you are giving answers, there is this, you think that two options are correct, so which one should we mark, A or B, right? So these are ambiguous questions. You should not go for, ambiguous questions. You should not ask double barreled questions, because the person, double barreled questions are those questions in which you are asking two questions at the same time in one question. So you should not ask two questions at the same time. Always ask one question, and very clear, in very easy language that the person can everyone can understand, right? um, when you are asking two questions, then there is a possibility that the person might not be able to answer, might forget to answer one, or maybe confuse the one with the other. So it's better not to ask questions, not to ask double barreled questions. Do not ask leading questions. Now, a leading question is a leading question is a question in which, which I've already just explained, in that is, um, where you are actually giving your own view to the other person. And this is a leading question, means the other person, you're giving your own views to the other person, and the other person might answer in the same way, right? So for example, if you ask someone, isn't it happening like that, and when you ask, isn't it happening like that, it means that you're you're asking a leading question. Should not ask a leading question in any ways. And do not ask questions that are based on presumptions, means that someone has assumed something, um, and you are, asking questions regarding that, right? If, maybe you have assumed that this person is like that. So for example, if a person looks like uh, uh, a foreigner, and the person is not a foreigner, and you start asking, because you have already assumed that the person is like that, and you ask a question that, so how many years have you spent in, were you born in America or in, England? Obviously this is something which you have assumed that the person is born here in Pakistan. So you should not ask any questions like that. So there's one point that questionnaire should not be very lengthy. That is, if the questionnaire is like a 4 and 5 and 6 pages, it's very difficult for the people to, fill it and, submit it back to the researcher. The questionnaire should be concise, so that it is not a problem for the researcher to fill it, and it is easy for the respondents. You have to make it easy for the respondents. And that's I guess that's it for the questionnaires.